All right, welcome back to my little series that I got going on the 89 Ranger Coyote swap project. It's just another day that we're on to the next step of it, or one part of it anyway. You know, as we wait for more parts and stuff, we're trying to get as much as the little stuff out of the way until, you know, we wait for suspension to come in and some other parts. So today I want to tackle the shifter. I want to try and get that mounted. It's going to be it's a different size than the old one that I had in there. So it's just going to be a matter of figuring out exactly where I want to position it and then try and get it to fit into the center console hole that's already there. So now, not all of you will have the same setup as mine as far as the center console and the two racing seats in there necessarily. So some of this you won't necessarily have to do. This is just kind of how mine is set up and how I had it beforehand. So trying to make that shifter fit in the center console and do as minimal damage as I can to it without having to totally redo it. So some of this will pertain to your guys if you want to do this project. Otherwise, just follow along and see how I end up doing mine. So this is the bracket I made for the old shifter. This one right here, which is a B&M hammer shifter. It's just made for a Fox body Mustang. So it kind of sat about like that in here through that hole. You know, I kind of trimmed it a little bit on the sides, and that sat in here. So now this new shifter is a different height. So I basically have to try and figure out what height I'm going to set it in here, you know, forward or back a little bit. And then this rubber boot or leather boot here, it's probably going to sit about there, I suppose, just below the knob itself. So just trying to figure out, you know, I don't want to cut this hole for this too big or too small. Basically, I want to get it just in the right spot, so it's going to take a lot of time just trying to figure out where we're going to do this. I'm hoping to use this bracket, you know, or at least the material. I'm thinking if I don't put another plate across the bottom here and bring it up, I'm going to end up having to cut a big chunk of this out and just lower the whole thing down. I think as far as the new shifter, it's going to be about an inch off the floor to get up to where I need it to be for this. You know, this boot here can only be so far forward or back, otherwise it's going to bind a little bit. So getting that in the perfect spot too, forward to back. And then height wise, it's just a little tricky getting all them figured out. So, all right, so I'm getting ready to tack this plate on here. This is my bracket that I was just showing you guys. And after doing some measuring where exactly that shifter is going to sit, I figured it's going to be basically about 1.25 inches off of the floor. This is sitting sideways, so once it's flat. So the shifter will actually be sitting on top of this. So this is basically 1.25 inches. Obviously, however you guys decide to mount yours, it'll be different. If you have a center console in yours, or, you know, if it's just open, you can just mount it right to the floor. But what I'm going to do is just kind of tack weld the corners here, and then I'll end up, you know, cutting just above it here, and then getting rid of the whole top, because I don't need it. And then I'll probably come back and TIG weld along the bottom, you know, each side here. And then it should be good, and then I'll figure out where exactly my bolt holes will be. And one thing too, on mine, I ordered this cable here. It's supposed to be out of a 2016 F-150. I don't think it's the exact same one that's supposed to be with this. I'm going to use it. It was only, what, 15 bucks or something like that. I got off of Rock Auto. So, but it doesn't, let's see which end. It doesn't match up. There should be a bracket or an arm that sticks off of here. So when it comes on here, as you can see, it just clips on this end. And then this, kind of this area here, I think is supposed to sit in this groove, but it doesn't line up right. And there's no way of bolting it on to this end. You can see there's supposed to be something that just bolts on here, and then it slides into this groove. But I'm gonna I just made a little bracket for this right here. Basically, this is just gonna bolt on like that, and then I'll actually set that bigger end right there in this channel, and then I'm just going to put that hose clamp up around here and clamp it tight, and it should work fine. One reason too that if you're mounting this to the floor, be aware of it. The cable, you know, comes at an angle, and it, let's see if I can lay it like that here, but the cable kind of shoots down almost straight into the floor, because I think in the F-150s this sits up quite a bit higher in the center console. So you have this cable that shoots down, and then if you have it mounted to the floor, it's going to have to make a, you know, sharp curve straight again along the floor. So to have it up a little bit, you know, and even an inch or so is going to help, so that cable's not bent so tight. I think it'll still work fine, but just something to keep in mind. And I noticed too that you can make this shifter, if you're going to be using the same shifter assembly, a little bit smaller. If you look on it, there's a pin right here, and that'll actually come out the other side here. And I think it just, the way it looks, it just kind of hinges in the front. So if you take this pin out back here, basically from here to here will all come out, and then you don't need this platform on the bottom. So you can even make it a little bit smaller if you want, but you'd still have to come up with some sort of bracket out here for the cable to mount to. So this is helpful. It does have the bolt holes on it, but yeah, if you want to make it even smaller, you could. You just have to figure out a way to mount that cable there. So I'm going to get this tack welded on and trimmed up, and then we'll set that in there and figure out where our actual mounting holes are going to be. All right, now that the plate is made, I got that bolted back in there, and you know, carpet and everything set in here. Next we're gonna put the seats back in here, just set them in here. That way I can put the center console right where it's supposed to be, and then I can set the shifter back on here and get that lined up where I want it to be, and then we'll get the holes marked. Then we can make some, whether I'm just going to run a bolt through there, or I might put a nut cert in there instead, where each hole should be, and then we'll get that marked. And then we'll probably end up trying to figure out where our cable is going to be running through. I thought for sure that the cable might run up over in this corner here, but I think it's going to end up being over here or straight ahead somewhat, but we'll see where the shifter comes out. So being I'm trying to figure out where exactly the shifter is going to go in the center console here, I'm trying to make a little pattern. I want to remove this orange plate off the top of here, so it's more open in here. You'll see once that's off. But I want to be able to put this on and off and not have to worry about the gauges and all the wiring that's in it. So I want to make a little panel here, or patch, just so I can lay it in here when the center console is actually in the truck. So I'm trying to trace this. This is the opening, and then the little openings here where that old bezel clipped in there, and then I'll, you know, reference it with the screw holes here. So once it's off, it'll just be this small panel. Then I can lay it in here, and okay, I know that I need to cut more here or cut more there. I don't want to have to redo this top panel, this orange part. So the bare minimum of cutting that I want to do here to open this up, because it'll almost cover all this old part here. So that's kind of nice. I won't have to patch any holes there, but that's what I'm trying to do here. Basically got this traced out. We'll pull it off, we'll get it transferred over to a piece of cardboard, and then we'll go from there. All right, got the interior all back in here, so just trying to figure out, you know, where we want to mount this thing on the plate. I think we're going to end up having it, you know, all the way back. It's kind of hitting underneath down in this corner right now. I might have to notch some of that depending on where this comes out here, but this is where my template is going to come in handy. You can see when I had originally cut this out, or I shouldn't say originally, but when I cut this out bigger to fit this boot here, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to end up making this look nice, so it was nice and finished. But when I have this somewhat centered from side to side in the center console here, right now I have it cut so it's nice and snug around that boot, and it would fit in there and pretty much stay there. But as you can see, it didn't quite cover those two spots. So if I just brought that up and snugged that in there, it wouldn't, you know, cover that. You'd see that once I originally cut it. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'll cut this just slightly larger than that boot, rubber boot, but I'll make a plastic bezel that'll go around this, just like this is cut out, and maybe have, I don't know, 1/2 inch or quarter bezel or something like that, 3/8 wide bezel all the way around, and then make it snug on here, but we'll end up screwing it down to this, so then that'll cover up these 2 little notches in here once I, you know, do the final cutting on the orange cover here that goes on. So I think I got that figured out for that, but this will come in handy here once we get this, you know, the bolt holes figured out, where we're going to mount them here and here. So the biggest thing as far as positioning this is, you know, when it's fully forward, you know, it's going to stretch this area, and when it's all the way back, it's going to stretch this area. So you don't want it necessarily pulling on it and then starting to tear if you know, go too far. So just getting this centered right in the right spot here. You know, it's pretty centered left to right, right about there, I suppose, and left to right. So we'll have to get this figured out front to back, see if our holes line up here and here, or if we're going to have to move this template forward or back on the other aluminum piece that I have here. So, all right, I got the shifter mounted to the bezel now. Basically just use the nutserts like I said. If you don't know what a nutsert is, it's basically a rivet, but it's got threads in it. You kind of install them the same way. But I wanted to point out something, so now that it's mounted, I will be using this connector. Basically, the wires for you know, going up and down with the transmission and the gears, plus and minus here, and then you have the tow button here, all come to this connector, and I'd like to hook them up so everything works on it, and I can control it, the 6R80 on it. Also, there is, if you want to use it, this little lever right here, or solenoid in here. Basically, when this is how you would get it out of gear. Like right now, I can't get it out of gear, but if I push that forward, then I can get it out of gear. You know, you have to apply the brakes before you can move the shift lever in most modern cars. I would like to hook that up as well, and everything comes to this connector right here. So I ended up buying this harness, or kind of a breakout plug here, just a replacement one, but see there's the part number for it, Motorcraft. I think I got it off of Rock Auto, and it wasn't too bad, so it's just a matter of wiring that up. Along on the engine you have the engine harness, and then you also have the body harness. The body harness is actually wired to hook this up to it. I don't believe the body harness that I have has this connector. It'd be a matter of splicing all these wires together, but I do believe everything is labeled, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out which one goes where. Otherwise I'm going to have to get a wiring schematic for it. But yeah, I just figured I'd point that out. So that all depends on what you want to do there, if you're going to go this far and try and hook all that up, but otherwise that's ready to install. All right, got my trim bezel made. Basically went and picked up some 1/4 inch thick plastic from Menards. It's just a plastic sheeting that you can find, and you know, it turned out pretty nice. Cut it to the size that I need. It's basically a press fit along this edge here, and just kind of squeezed it in there, and put a little bit of glue on the back side. You know, drilled all my holes that I wanted in there, kind of made them, spaced them out evenly, and I have a bezel tool, so I put a little angle on the edge there just to kind of make it look a little bit nicer, and it'll turn out. I'll show you. Tilt the knob on there, but that's how it'll look once I'm all got it back on there and everything. And I'll show a picture of that too once I got everything back installed. So, all right, here's the final product. Got everything installed the way it's going to be when it's all done. As you can see, it turned out pretty good. Shifts through the gears nice. The rubber boot is centered where it should be. I ended up installing the shift pattern light indicator here that I got from Dakota Digital as well. There's a sensor that's going to be mounted on the transmission You'll probably see that in a different video of mine, but that sensor will then tell me which gear I'm in, so each one will light up as we shift through the gears. You could mount that just about anywhere if you wanted to, but I just thought that's a good spot for it. So, but otherwise, yeah, back to kind of the way it was. Just had to mount that shift lever there. Actually, you know, all this is actually going to have to come back out now that I got it finished up. There will be some more floor modifications because I still have to hook up the shift cable in there, and I'll have to figure out where the hole is going to be down here. And I'm actually going to be trimming some of the dash down in front of the center console here, just to make a little bit more room and clean it up and everything. So all that's going to have to come right back out again, but that's just the way it goes. So, well, that'll do it for this one. I appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, guys, take care.